2 months.
I know, this fall has gone by so quickly.
I was telling Heather about missing a meeting. I was thinking next Tuesday was the fourth. So I
I
thought, oh, we got a
know.
week.
Yeah.
Okay, I just happened to see my email. Saw the agenda, go, oh, that's really early. And then I realized the date's today.
Yeah, right.
I saw it yesterday.
Okay, we are live.
All right. We will call our meeting to order. We do roll call.
Will Roddy Bush here?
John Sampen here.
Jeff Howe's here.
Chris Mowen here. We'll see if Chris Tracy, I haven't heard from her, have you?
I have not.
She might just be running a little late. If she can make it. Approval of October 25th meeting minutes. Do we have any comments or?
I move we accept the minutes.
A second.
Any opposed? Okay, well, we've. Chris Tracy would say, took the minutes for our October meetings and
Did a good job.
Jeff
They look good.
was out, so when she gets here, we can sign those. Right, Heather, Chris she'll be signing the
Correct,
minutes,
yes.
since she took those.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, I think I put him by her seat
Yeah,
over
they're
there.
right here.
Yeah. Okay. Our next meeting is slated for December 27th. Do we have any concerns or issues with that?
Well, I probably won't. That would be the only concern for me. I'll
That's
be in.
probably more my concern was if we can get a quorum for that date.
I can be here.
Okay.
See what.
But I understand. Not everyone can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably have the gifts all returned that I need to do by then.
Okay. Okay.
The gift.
So I think we can keep that date then.
Okay.
There's nothing from the city's perspective, right, on that?
No, I don't believe so.
So the building's not closed
No.
or anything? Okay. Can keep that date then. Okay, moving right along. Our local designations, we have University Hall. John had some
Right,
positive
We did finally
enforcement.
get a response. I shared that with Chris, and I think Heather, did I send that to you?
Yes.
Also, just saying that it's another person in the university that takes care of the University Hall plaques and special designation of buildings. So I'm waiting to hear from her. I have not yet. I'll give her a couple more days and then I'll make contact there. But apparently the President Rogers has some wording that he would like to have considered, and I don't have that information either. So
Okay,
we'll have it soon, I hope.
will they be providing us with, what desired location and things like that? Or are they looking for our input?
I have always been asking for a meeting that we
Okay,
could
so
discuss
we can-
this. We haven't managed to make that happen yet, but
Yeah.
I think we should have some discussion together about, I'm sure they'll have a place they would like it hung and the size and
Mhm.
the material. So
Okay.
I will continue working on that. It's been a long project.
Yeah, thank you for continuing to communicate with them. The Wood County Courthouse and former jail, I did take a look at that inventory form, and I've added some architectural details. I wanted to go out there this weekend again. There's a lot of filigree and carvings in that building. I wanted to make sure we gave it the justice it deserves in terms of the write-up. But I didn't want to go out in the cold. I'm just gonna be honest. So I will get that. I'll get that done. I just, when I was working on it on Sunday, I was under a blanket and cozy.
So I think Heather got photographs. You got the photographs?
Yeah,
or
we
something?
have
Okay.
photos and we added up several significant events.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's just the last piece of that. Then we'll be done.
Yeah.
Will there be a mention of the relief on the east side of the figures?
Yeah.
The
the-
three figures, yeah. Justice, agriculture, and I don't remember the other
Industry.
one. Industry. Yes. I did put that right up in, but yeah. And then at that point, early on, we kind of had a conversation maybe about talking to the commissioners on a plaque or something similar to what we might do at University Hall. I can't remember where that landed.
I think it would be
Awesome.
nice for consistency if you figure out what's happening with University Hall. We
And then
take
we
lead from
offer-
that.
Yeah. We'll build off of that when we
Okay.
get there.
They may also have a vendor too. That would be
Mhm.
helpful.
Yeah.
To know as a
I know.
option.
I'm a university vendor. I would
Mhm.
suspect they do. So they'll want us to work with whoever that might be and keep it consistent. So
Yeah.
we can do that first and then move
Move on.
to the courthouse.
Great. 328 East Court Street. How did that hearing go last?
Great. They
Last night.
passed the ordinance
Great.
at city council after holding a public hearing. I feel like I printed that out and I forgot to bring it. I had a copy of it. Oh, here it is. If you want to see it, this is what the ordinance looks like and all the attachments that are part of the record.
Super.
Hey,
Number one.
And Nina was there, the property owner, which was nice.
And there was
That
no,
was nice to meet.
dissent or actually very little discussion. They approved it right away. So we're happy
good.
about that.
wonderful.
Very good.
Good. Glad to hear that. Yeah, sorry I couldn't make it, didn't make it back in town for the meetings last night. Okay, so that's completed then.
Yes.
We've got the inventory in our catalog, so we're. Well, great.
So is that now, is there another hearing on that house or we are?
Nope,
finished?
that's the recorded ordinance.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The Boomtown district, at our last meeting, Will, you'd mentioned maybe coming with some thoughts on
Thoughts.
how this might district or districts of overlays could occur.
Well, just the thought of designating historic districts by street. So what I did here in yellow, I went through the National Register maps that had the Boomtown overlay
Yeah.
and, or outline it called it, and then the Main Street outline. So what I did was I designated kind of what they showed their limits. For example, if you look at, say, Maple Street,
Mhm.
it goes north, but it really didn't go south. So I tried to
Right.
designate approximately on there. And I did go out, say, West Worcester Road, or Haskins Road, because of the Martindale site. So this would, to me, the streets, doing it by street gives us a chance to designate, say, historic sites and contributing properties. And then also say non-contributing within that district. And when you look at the ordinance talks about being contiguous
Mhm.
and just says having historic districts, the definition is having two or more contributing properties or designated pursuant to process outlined in 15806. So it's having two or more contributing properties. It doesn't say they have to be adjoining each other. So to me, say, for example, like if we use the Court Street 328, now that it's got one property designated, a second property designated on Court Street, then we could name Court Street as historic district. We can't name any of the others as historic districts until you have two properties.
So there's a there's two different processes, one to list an individual building and then one to list a district. And
Right.
within that, so the individual buildings don't need to be
in a district.
individually listed to become part of a district. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, because it just talks about historic district
Right.
has to have two property or two contributing
Right.
properties. Yeah.
So when we draw our boundary, let's say, for instance, you're looking at West Wooster Street. If you take that entire, between Main Street and Haskins Road, there will be buildings such as the Huntington Bank building. Could be within the district, but it would be listed as non-contributing.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Now, the yellow going out Worcester Street shows up on the map going out to Winfield. So
Okay.
there's this property
That's
like
that.
in that corner.
Right.
And then I went over, I did say like Clough Street, for example. And I didn't realize until I had my copies all done and started coloring that I'd missed the windmill
windmill.
house. So to me, that at some point could be a historic site, maybe whether it's contributing or not, but the same like with Thurston. I added Thurston. So pretty much to the east of Main Street, those are what we've talked about. Those were not in the maps. Those aren't in the
Right.
register. So,
Right, we
but
don't
say,
have
for
a-
example, Thurston could be like the Heinz plant
Mhm.
on there.
Mhm.
And again, it could be a historic district, but it does, well, it can't be a district unless it just has two contributing properties. But it could have,
There might be other properties along
Yeah.
Thurston that would be historically contributing.
right,
Yeah.
it have a historic site that, the building is no longer there, but it at some point probably needs to be recognized as what used to be there.
Right.
the Heinz
Yeah, the
plant.
Heinz plant. Mhm.
And then on Main Street, it's pretty long. I did include from the map, but it goes, I go on up to Poe Road because when you start reading through some of the historic books like by Van Tassel or the
Mhm.
Sesquicentennial, you start realizing there was possibly a tavern or something, I think, at the corner of Poe and North Main. So then I started thinking that, it could be researched and find out there was like a historic site there. And then it goes down to Napoleon Road, because at that corner, that was Mount Ararat. That was originally what they thought would be the center of the city. But then according to these books, I think Van Tassel's book, there was some business people that got together and did things, and I think it might have been swampy in part of this,
Mhm.
but that's where they started more businesses on Worcester and Maine.
Mhm.
And so that
Ah,
became the
Interesting.
core of downtown. Basically took it over from Mount Ararat. But I think on the northeast corner of Napoleon and South Main might have been one of the first schools. And I
Oh,
think possibly that might have been where the Martindale kids went to school. I mean, it was a walk, say, from, this is no streets, no sidewalks,
right.
paths. But I think that's why I like the idea of streets, that you can dig into the history about what went on
Yeah.
that street.
Mhm.
And whether it could be like a tentative historic district, since there's, say, if we have something that doesn't have two contributing, like the historic district, or, is it something that we, at some point, we want to redefine historic district? Yeah.
So, and I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but we have a list within our ordinance of what would constitute contributing. It's, more than 50 years, and there's a list of them. It's probably in here too. So I think there's plenty of opportunities on
I
all of,
got you.
all
now.
of these streets to find contributing
Yeah.
buildings.
And I started just
Yeah.
thinking of the process. It's like identifying a street. So if John mentioned Maple Street, or we have the house now on Court Street, but it would be focusing on a street you know, and developing the survey, kind of following the steps in the ordinance,
Mhm.
you know, conducting a survey.
Right.
To see, you know, according to the process in the ordinance.
So what will have to happen, we do a survey, and let's say we wanted to do all of Main Street, all the way from Napoleon, all the way up to Poe Road. We would have to take a survey of all those homes, and if we wanted to make that a district, we would have to get a survey and find out,
Mail something to the property owners that,
Yep.
yeah,
and we would have to hear from them
Yeah.
if they agree to it. And if we have 30% that want it and 60-70% that don't, you know, that's going to go to City Hall and to the city council. And they can still make a decision, even if the numbers don't look so favorable, but I would suspect they wouldn't do it if we had that kind of, so we would have to
Right, we
do,
want to
we would have to do a lot of,
suspect they want support, right?
we would have to do a lot of negotiating and cheerleading to try to push that through for that whole street.
well, and you'd have a lot of non-contributing.
Right.
You know, that's why I was thinking whether the historic district definition, whether it needs to be expanded or something so that it can include historic sites. You know, that aren't
And I
necessarily
do think historic sites can be.
contributing.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think it has to have a building itself.
But-
Our, you know, our,
Like the Heinz plan.
right,
Yeah.
our, per 158.06, we have our, you know, how a property qualifies for designation. And we say it has to meet two of the criteria, I think. You know, at least 50 years old, possesses historic significance, is the site of a significantly historic event. Is identified with a person or group of persons who influence society. You know, I won't read all of them, but so I think when we're looking at each of these individual streets, if that's how we want to go about it, we can, when we draw that boundary, we can look at that and say, there's maybe, you know, 4 buildings within. Let's look at, if we're just looking at Meeker Street, right? This one block. If there's 10 buildings on that block and 4 of them are not contributing, then we have to consider, is that really a strong district when? So I would think it
Or-
would be a case by case
yeah.
basis.
Well, the other thing too is I was thinking that the districts may need to be flexible. In other words, you may start out with a real small district. It could be 2 contributing properties on Court Street. And it may not include all of Court Street. Because the district expand? If it starts out with probably at least two contributing properties.
Mhm.
And then it could be added to others.
I don't see why
Does that-
not.
Right.
That's why I'm thinking
Yeah.
even like say Main Street, this is kind of like. Ideal, like the whole thing say, but it may just be. Right now, it's probably going to be the downtown buildings. That are on the historic map. You know, that
On our
we
national
would go
register.
for, and if the district would start out small, but at some point. You know, I could see if we get into more history about what occurred, say, at Poe Road and Main Street or Mount Ararat.
Mhm.
You know, and it's sort of like probably relying on the Friends as that we have a tentative idea from the book or books or other data, and then somehow proving it. In other words, just to make sure that it was truly something there, like if it's a school or a tavern or post office, several post offices,
Mhm.
several taverns.
I love the fact that I can see the street names on this map.
So you actually know what we're looking at.
So that's great. Thank you for.
It
putting
took a
that
little while
together.
to get it to fit onto an 8.5
Yeah.
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 to go up to Poe and, but
Yeah.
I did miss the the windmill house. I meant to have that on there.
I do think, and you make a good point about, I guess I've never thought about, let's just say, we were to say, we want to do this, everything that's highlighted as a district. There's nothing in our ordinance that says that's the end all be all. There can always be new districts or new individual listings, right? So it's sort of going to be a living document
Yeah.
based on,
Versus to me, it may be an overlay of within that, it's a layer is the different districts, the different streets, but you got like, say the historic overlay could be the ones, I could see them being the streets that have been approved or
Yep.
accepted as a district. So
right?
there's the overlays, sort of like going back to architecture and overlays and the Mylars. I see the overlay district, and initially it may have Maple Street.
Right.
And
And
then Court Street could get added to it. And
Right.
part of it too is when you look at the definition of contiguous, it just says touching and contact. Or the second is in close proximity without actually touching. It's just near. So what I see with this is they're all touching. They're all connected, just like a
The
spine.
Mm.
Touching.
They're all
you're
touching.
The street anyway,
That's right.
yeah.
Yep. So, Troost is connected because it's touching Worcester, and it's,
so do we want to, what would sort of be our next steps in your minds in terms of
well, sort of going back to
choosing
like,
individual streets to?
going back to like these maps is what I did on the west side was, except for Worcester. Going up Haskins Road, was I used the map to look at what was already identified with the yellow outline as to what it was, what it included on the street. But I would think it would be, Court Street, we have one, whether it's the focus or John mentioned Maple Street, but would be actual like step in ordinance of doing the survey. And initially I thought like, this is just my thoughts about based on the map but would be even actually physically looking to see, like what's on Meeker.
Right.
Like, should it go on up to Morton
Mhm,
or should it stop at Wallace
mhm.
or be partway up to Wallace? That's what I
Right.
don't know. Cause I think another one on Worcester Road I heard about, I don't know if it's true. I think it is, but I think there's one of the Montgomery Ward's houses. To me, those are kind of significant. I think the building was on South College in Worcester that the university tore down for the health center. That was, I think, maybe a Sears and Roebuck
Okay.
or a Montgomery Ward's house.
Wow.
I heard. I didn't get a chance to go up and look at the attic, say to look at all the joists, because they're all numbered. All the pieces are numbered.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure which house is on Haskins Road, but I thought to me, that's another historically significant thing because of the history of those
Mhm.
fabricated houses, the kit homes back in the 50s.
There's one we know of for sure next to Dale's house on Ridge by the alley. by the,
Okay.
Ridge Street Park. Oh,
And that was one of the
This-
catalog homes. Yeah, I think those are pretty unique.
Yeah. I do think, so in order for a survey to go out, we as a commission would have to say, here's the boundary, right? In order to do that, we'd have to do some of that investigation of, like you said, where do these start and stop exactly? So that's where I think breaking it up into smaller increments where we might just look at North Maple and see if this is kind of get our feet wet with something less substantial than
Yeah.
Main
Well,
Street.
yeah, it's just,
or Worcester Street or something that's a little bit.
And I know that North Maple stopped in the middle of that street. think,
Yeah, it didn't go up to Morton.
it didn't go all the way up.
I think it went
didn't
past
go up to
Originally.
Wallace. It certainly
Right.
didn't go up to Wallace.
It didn't?
No.
I thought it did. But
No.
anyway,
No,
Yeah.
there were some non-contributing homes there.
yeah.
But
But I
that
think-
doesn't mean we, we could
Right.
still consider.
So
farther.
because the Boomtown National Register was written in the 80s.
Yeah, 84.
So, and the National Park Service uses a similar, same type of criteria that we have in terms of,
Mm.
so 50 years is that general cutoff. Well, we're 30 years past that National Register listing. So I don't personally feel like we need to be tied to where that map stops, because we will have buildings that might be, 60 years old that back then were not considered contributing, but we might consider them contributing today. Yeah. So that's where I just think some of that investigation might need to occur so that we really know. We don't want to be arbitrary about saying, well, we'll just cut it off here. What if there's 4 more properties up the road that could benefit from being a part
And
of that?
that could be still considered in our ordinance as appropriate.
Right,
Yeah.
right, based on our criteria.
That's why that was just about need to physically walk it just to
Yep.
identify.
Well, we need to do more than walking, because we need to get information from that.
history of it.
that homeowner and find out if they know when that home was
Yeah,
built.
yeah.
I mean, we can tell that something's a more modern house, but we need to have that detail. I think.
Is that
But we
something?
certainly can start at North Maple and I know that there's support from a lot of the residents. Just a matter of how we get going on this.
Right. That's why that's why I was wondering, do we want to just try, one street, see how it goes, then do another and do,
That's right,
I
yeah,
mean, it
yep.
will take
Because
a
part of
while,
it, like even identifying the dates and that might be,
Yeah.
do we get into looking at the tax information or,
yeah.
but there,
Why don't we, it's a nice day today. Why don't we stop a little bit early and go look at North Maple together?
And see what kind of
At
boundary,
least we can visually take a look.
right?
Does that sound interesting?
Yeah.
And then I guess my question to you all would be, do we as a commission want to prioritize, our where we might want to,
Other streets
Right.
as well.
and we don't have to answer that now, but I just think if we might want to think about,
No, I think
our
that's-
steps
I
forward.
think we
that's
should
good.
do that soon, because the sooner we get it going, we can designate.
Right.
And then if we publicize those designations, then other neighborhoods might be more
Might be interested.
interested, yeah.
And we don't have to be the only one, right? The community can come to us and say,
Mhm.
we want this
why
here.
aren't, why aren't we?
Yeah.
in it?
So
That's what we want.
hopefully it's not all on our backs,
Yeah,
but that's what we signed up for, if that's what happens.
I think the other thing with the history of with the friends and individuals that live in these areas would, come forward with if they have some significant history about a property or like we found out the one there, what was on Prospect, 129, the marriage mill, or, and all of a sudden, you don't see that when you're looking at the house,
Mhm.
So there are often clues, because that same house also has that interesting, architectural details, the painted faces and things like that, So
Interesting.
Oh, interesting.
there are 2 houses like that and kitty corner from each other on Prospect there.
Oh,
One is called the Painted Lady.
right.
And I've seen that one, yeah.
Could we start prioritizing just with 2 or 3 plans already or too soon to do that? We need to look first.
I think you just one and get the processes, like get the steps as to,
How it works.
yeah.
And maybe by our next meeting, we can each come with, you know, what we think the prior.
Mhm.
That's kind of what I was
Streets could
thinking
be.
too, is like if individually we could propose, you know,
See where
This-
where things overlap and.
Right. Good.
Yeah.
So are we in agreement to move forward and then go for a walk in a little bit? Um,
So I get a little nervous with that because with a public meeting, you're gonna need
Yeah.
to advertise time, place and time and place.
Okay.
So that wasn't announced as part of your meeting. So that's my only concern. So anytime there's more, a majority of you together, that's a public meeting.
Okay,
That's my only concern.
but I guess that's true. I mean, we would still be having a public meeting. We just wouldn't be doing it here, but
Correct.
that's the issue, right?
Right.
Okay.
It
Correct.
wasn't advertised.
Okay.
But we could
Right.
each,
Do our own.
yeah, we
individual.
could each, I think for our next meeting, we could each look at North Maple and see where we think a good boundary might be.
Okay.
And come to the meeting with that.
So two things planned for next
Yeah.
meeting, that we will have looked at North Maple. And we will bring proposal for the next neighborhood.
Right,
might
for
look at, yeah.
priorities. Do you all like that I give you homework?
I will, yeah, get these minutes done soon so that I can send that at least to the
So we have a
to
reminder.
the commission. So I have a reminder.
Is there any more? Is that it?
Yes, those are extras. Oh, this stopped. I meant to continue that on. Great. I think, that's just the ordinance
This
that
one,
was
I have
passed.
that.
Yes,
Yeah, this is.
that's 328 East Court Street, right?
Oh,
Sorry. Do we have any other discussion on the Boomtown? What we've labeled right now as Boomtown District.
Just a thought, since we've labeled it that way, but that's the designation that the federal parks have.
Right,
given
the
us.
national.
We might want to come up with a different one. But Boomtown is very identifiable, so I'm not proposing that. I'm suggesting we think about it, yeah.
And I don't know if we need to name our districts either. We just. Do we? I don't know if that's how.
Bowling
if we
Green
just
Historic
say,
District. or
Here's
something
one
like that.
district and here's.
well,
one
that's why I
district.
think with the streets and
Yeah,
Mhm.
then
Yeah, yeah. mhm.
it'd be just the Bowling Green Historic Districts
District.
overlay and it's got the
Good.
individual
Yeah.
districts.
It started out as Boomtown District as part of our strategic plan, but I think it's kind of morphing, which is fine.
Help
Like
us.
perfectly acceptable, but. um, Great. Do we have any other thoughts on that or?
No.
No, okay. For our item of Friends of the HPC, we have our Historic Buildings of the Month. This is where I was hoping to have my laptop before it died, but I think we have this year covered. Well, we only have, 2 months left of this year. And January covered.
We will, yes. I don't have it done yet, but we will.
I just can't remember, for February, we were hoping to do something on the marriage mill houses, so to
Who was?
find
the-
a way to write this, can get that down and,
Sorry.
no, that's fine. a narrative is all I'm saying.
Milliken is next, is that correct?
I think that was right in March.
And who was working on that?
So we actually had a few people, Larry Nader said he would be
Mhm.
willing to contribute, which is great since he has familial history with that. Sarah Butler from the BGSU archives thought that they had some information she'd be able to pull together for that as well.
Former Mayor Dick Edwards sent me a couple older news articles, and this one is on the Milliken, so I can
Oh,
share
great.
that with whoever's doing the article. You think Nader would be the right person?
Yeah,
Yes.
do you have, we have his email in our friends.
Chris, I thought Kat Patterson offered that one, didn't she?
Oh, did she as well?
I think it might have been Kat.
I thought it
Okay.
was.
Was it Kat, not Sarah? Am I misremembering?
I mean, we can scan it, John, if you want,
Mhm.
and email it to her.
Yeah, this.
You
is
want
a-
to keep it?
No, I have an
Oh, okay.
extra copy.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
This was another not totally complete historic preservation and economic development of downtown. I have no idea what date it was. There's nothing on that. But that's from Edwards also.
During the study of Heritage 2000.
Hmm.
Oh, that's great.
So Here's an,
Okay.
I have two copies. Let's give one to
Oh.
Heather, and do you want to keep one? And I have another copy.
You have a
myself. Yeah.
copy? Great. Thank you. So I will send a follow-up email to Kat and Larry and just see if they would be willing, to collaborate on that write-up.
Great.
And then I had suggested I'm blanking on the historic name, but where the Naders currently live, I'd suggested their house be the next
Yeah.
in April.
Does that have a name? I
It
forgot.
does. I
does.
forget who the
Yeah.
original owners were.
Yeah.
But and Larry said he would be willing to write that.
Is it Olman?
Oh, Ullman, yeah. Could
I
have been
I don't know if the house is named after that, but that's
Yeah.
another branch of Larry's.
Yeah. Brony.
Ronnie's,
Ullman.
okay.
Okay.
And then Rose offered to do the Blazel. I don't know if we had a month plugged in for that.
I'll have to look at that spreadsheet, but that would be. I can't remember what we looked at for May. That might have been, that might be a good one for May.
Is that good? Okay.
Okay. No, January is.
A theater, Chittister Theater. It has a
Right.
couple other names that we're working on.
Yeah, and then February are the Marriage Mill houses. Or, there were two, right? Or more.
I don't know. I think Rose offered to do a article about being a marriage mill town in general,
Oh, that
or
would be.
was it? That's what I
yeah.
thought it was, which we already have a lot of information on that from Dick,
Yeah.
in my office. I don't know. I'm
That
not
would be
sure.
great. We just.
I'm not trying to give Rose work. I just remember that you
Yeah.
offered that. I don't know.
If another
Yeah.
house turns up, we can.
Yeah. I just think it's an interesting story. It's not something I had heard. So just thought it would be a fun one to circulate. So I will send out an updated list, make sure we're all on the same page about who's doing what when. And then we can look at kind of later next year, what we might want to focus on. Okay, our interpretive signage project. So I had, since our last meeting, I had a meeting with two of the professors in the visual technology. I think that's the name
I
of
think
it.
that's the one.
Yes.
BCC.
College Technology.
Um, visual communications technology, that's the department. And they have a spring semester, senior capstone class where the students work directly with clients or, certain entities about to come up with designs of whatever, the project is. So I drafted up kind of a call for any students who might be interested in working with us on our signage project. Hopefully that email went through I think I sent it last night,
Yeah.
yesterday sometime. So it sounds like it might be a great opportunity to partner with BGSU students, and they could create some templates so that we can not only implement, a few signs with hopefully the grant we get, but that it might be something we could just build off of each year.
Good.
Yeah. So I kind of broke it out in that draft, in that call, that maybe our phase one is we focus on the general downtown core history. So, 4 signs, maybe 2 on North Main and 2 on South Main or something like that, that would kind of give a more overarching history of the block or downtown. And then in subsequent phases or years, however we want to discuss it, we might do individual buildings that have importance. Any thoughts on that?
I think that's a great idea, Chris. I'll
Okay.
take a look at your email. I haven't read it yet. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry I
fine.
didn't respond over the weekend.
Oh,
But
that's okay.
I think that's a great start. And once we get a good idea of how many students are really involved, maybe we can nail down the date that we want to have the open call and start really drafting what, the outreach will be for the professionals that we want to make a call for in the community. Or do you
Yeah.
just want to do?
I think so. The way this class would work, it would, they would be working directly with us as by the end of the semester, they would have to come up with a full design kind of all on their own. So I don't know if
Oh,
don't know if we might muddy the waters if we bring other people involved, just from the student's perspective, kind of give them the reins and let them run with it.
Are we imagining that there would be multiple designs for us to choose from, or that the whole class would be creating one design?
We would probably only have one student that would work on the project, but we could, part of the design process would be they might come up with a few different, ideas, and then we could kind of
I think that
narrow
I
it
would
down.
rather not just have one design that we're stuck with
Mhm.
if we don't like it.
Right.
I think we need to be part of that process too.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
The idea would that, we would be their
Advisors.
right. We would be the client that they would walk through the process of how to design this signage, and then we would be involved in that discussion.
Okay, so you're imagining 6 signs, right? Is that what you said? 4 and 2? How did you say that for downtown?
So I think for this grant that we'll be applying for this winter, I think we'll probably be around like 4 signs is what we'll be able to get out of that grant. So that's where I was thinking.
kind of depends on how
for-
elaborate the design is, right?
Right.
I mean, whatever they come up with from a cost perspective, I think it's however many we want. We could say we only want one and this is
Right.
how much we want to spend, I think it's just how many we want.
What approximately what were those signs costing that we were investigating from with the Fremont
Mhm.
company? You-
Well, I don't know that exactly. So I'll add to the story a little bit. So we had to submit our preliminary budgets from each department, and we do sort of have unofficial administrative approval for matching funds for the grant.
Great.
That still needs to go to council for approval, but I think that's a good step forward for us to know that we do have potentially the matching funds. So since then, I did reach out to, remember we met with Marissa at the Wood County Museum? So she gave me information for the sign company they used, and I contacted her, and she should get us a quote by the end of the week. So we have something for the grant. Now, that doesn't mean we're picking that vendor because we do have to go through a public process to do so, but that gives us the quote needed for a grant. So we're, I think, moving along. And I think
Good.
once we get that quote this week, hopefully, then we'll be able to, I think, basically set up the grant for however many signs we think we can meet within their parameters of the budget. Now, the
Right.
CLG grant is only up to, I believe, $25,000. They range between 10 to 25,000. So then we'll know better how many signs. But I think the start of 4 makes sense because at least minimum, you'd have what, 2 on Main Street north of Worcester,
Mhm.
and then 2 on South Main, south of Worcester. And then maybe you could get 6 and get 1 on each side of Main Street on Worcester. I mean, not trying to get crazy, but
Right.
depending on the budget.
Right.
But I think that'll be a good start, and I think it'll be very attractive to the CLG grant parameters because there's 3 buckets you have to meet. And they're going to look very closely at those 3 buckets, one of them being tourism, economic development, and I believe education. I could be wrong on those, but I know those are the general buckets. So I think those general sign, interpretive signs would meet that requirement that they want. So I think it'd be a good start. And then I asked them for another quote for individual plaques that moving forward, depending on the cost of those, we could give some consideration in the budget or multiple phases of the CLG grant in the future to do the sites we've talked about individually. So whether that be the old Heinz plant, you know, individual buildings, maybe working with owners, they want one mounted on their building or they want one standalone, whatever, gives us some kind of menu of options to work within and the budget.
We don't know as far as the university goes, whether they're going to pay for it or we're doing it together or we're paying for it. So we
Right.
may want to include that in this proposal, that particular plaque, if that's what it will be. Okay, but 4 to 6 signs, depending on how
The
much they cost.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Okay, good.
And just to add, the sign company I did talk to, she actually came from the VCT program, so she's well aware of the Capstone project and, you know, said, you know, their company or other companies would work with them directly. So again, another opportunity that it could be a partnership between multiple people.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think that strengthens our grant if we have multiple organizations involved in helping design and put this together.
Right.
Excellent.
The one thing I wanted to make sure to note in that the call to the students is that in terms of the content of the history that's going on these signs we would not put that burden on these VCT students. That's, you know, we want them to focus on how it looks.
Design, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we would have to come up with that content and imagine with, you know,
Right.
Wood County Library has great resources. Another opportunity to partner with them to get that content and those photos to get on the sign. But that would be that's what we would have to bring to the student to get those accomplished.
Are we working with the teacher also? I don't know who
There's,
that Teacher would,
there's the professor that's teaching this spring class, Lainey
Puget,
Fugit. Thank you. I couldn't.
That's good.
so we're really asking her to organize this with the students, right?
So Lainey and Donna
Troutman.
Troutman, they were hoping to have something to send out to the students to gauge their interest.
Okay,
They think that they might have a couple students who would be interested. And then from there, by the start of the spring semester, Laney's students they come into the semester with an idea of the project they want. So one of those students, we might already be, they might reach out already and say, I'm interested
Good.
in doing this for my spring semester.
And I will add, the city has worked with them several times, the VCT program,
Mhm.
and had some very high quality work products. Obviously, it can be a concern at times, not knowing what you're going to get. So I agree that would be nice to have some options.
Mhm.
We had one do videos for us that turned out really well. Had to go to all our meetings. You're just like Chris said, like a client.
Right.
So it worked out well.
Same with Juniper. We've worked with the VCT program a few times.
Yeah,
We've had great engagement.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like they're doing good work there.
And I will add for sign quotes, why it's so important is because when I was talking to the contact at the sign company, they said material costs are so high for the higher quality you're going to want in your downtown, obviously to be, stabilized and, the vandalism and things like that. So it has to high quality
Mhm.
sign that we're going to look to have there for many years. So
Right.
definitely probably be a higher cost. So it's hard to compare it to city park signs because we do think they'll be probably different.
Mhm.
So.
A little more wear on downtown signs probably.
So once we get those quotes, then we should be identifying what we're going to highlight,
Right.
and I think we have to know that to go into the grant. So hopefully we'll know that by the next meeting.
What we're putting on the signs?
Not the wording, but let's say it's for the Milliken Hotel.
Yeah.
I think that information is important to go.
Okay. I think, I sort of envision these more, just like general downtown history and maybe each block, we'll have historic photos of the block that sign is on, but it might be a little bit more general.
Do you think they would buy that, or would it be better if we had specific information?
I don't think for the grant, we need to be that specific.
Okay.
In my
Okay.
opinion, I think it's really very generalized. We're talking about the development of downtown and this block was developed in 1833 to blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Milliken is a prominent hotel, so-and-so stayed there. That was very important, just high level highlights. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Right.
Fires, the couple.
Right.
Yeah.
Tornado,
We
yeah,
talk
with the
about-
accident on
Yeah.
the corner and yeah.
I think
So
so long as you're
lost.
just including concepts of what we want to say, I don't even think it
Yeah.
has to be set in stone. I think just
Yeah.
the idea of it for the
Yeah.
application would be fine.
Yeah.
And we did talk about a technology component that maybe there could be a QR code attached to the sign that would
Right.
take you to a city webpage that gave you more information than what's on the sign. If you're interested in more information, scan this QR code.
Right.
So,
Good.
or an audio tour in the future.
Right.
Mhm.
So and that could be something that we, if there's a QR code, maybe that's something that's incorporated with the student finds a way to incorporate that in the design. Or maybe that's, phase 2 of a more technology integration aspect of it. So if you all are agreeable, I'd like to get that call out so that students have time to look at it before this fall semester ends, because they're tasked with coming in at the beginning of spring semester with their ideas.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely.
okay. Get that call out. And then I sent an email to the grant administrator at SHPO. I can't remember his name, but
Adam.
Adam, thank you. They're changing the process of they're changing the grant application to an online format. So we don't have an exact deadline date yet. But he was hoping to have something out by the end of the year. So hopefully by our next meeting, we'll know exactly when our application deadline is.
Okay.
The content won't change but they are going to push the deadline back with this new format.
So maybe March instead of
Right.
February?
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Good.
So it gives us a little more time, but not a whole lot more time. As soon as I have that information though, I'll let everyone know. But like I said, hopefully it's before our next meeting. We have any other things we need to discuss on the grant application? Great. For public relations, our future events, we've got, I've reached out to, so Rose was gracious enough to find some information on a couple of the buildings that Ted Long was hoping to get to include in his audio tour of our downtown. I sent that out to him, so I need to follow up and see how that's going. Maybe make sure, he's got everything he needs. I know when he was done with his draft, he wanted us to kind of be the guinea pigs of that. So hopefully we get something soon and we can hear what he's put together. And then our next items are all partnered with Preservation Month in May, but it's going to come up quick. So we want to start planning some of these. Our workshop on historic tax credits, I was able to talk to Sam from SHPO today. He works directly with the director of the state of SHPO's tax credit division. And he's willing to come up and talk to our community about what that, what the process looks like from their end in terms of meeting the Secretary of Interior standards. So we're in the process of figuring out dates for that and getting some other people, some might be interested in coming to talk as well.
So he sent me an
did-
email.
Yeah. Go for it.
So he would like us to consider a very quick tax credit workshop as in someday between November 28th and December 13th.
Yeah.
So that if that were to happen, we need a venue and
Right.
screen so they could do a presentation. And then, of
What's-
course, be in charge of marketing that to our business owners and property owners. So
Right. So, concurrently, I guess that they'd just reached out and said, we'd like to come up and do a tax credit workshop, not knowing that we were in the process of trying to organize one ourselves. So I don't know if I see harm in them coming up and doing kind of a high level workshop in the next few weeks, and then we can just build off of that in May.
Did you
Unless
say
there's a-
November 28th?
Yes, next week.
well, that's what he gave me. He said sometime between November 28th and December 13th.
Right.
That seems a little
They're on-
soon. I'm sorry. That just
know.
is too soon.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We want to get publicity out.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
We need to find a place to do it.
Mhm.
I mean,
Be here.
it can just be here, I guess would be the easiest with the
Mhm.
screen. So
It just seems a little too soon to be, that's my honest opinion.
No, I think both Heather and I had a concern
Be
about
effective.
getting people
Mhm.
enough time to, fit it in their schedule. How many people will show up for something that's, in a week without them?
especially, business owners or property owners,
Right.
the holiday season, that
Yeah.
was my concern.
I
Yeah.
mean, but we don't want it to be embarrassing. Two people.
Right.
Well, and in full, just so next week is the Ohio Housing Conference. There will be a ton of tax credit professionals in Columbus. And so you're going to be hard pressed to find folks that are like, would be additional presenters or, you know what I mean? Like folks that I would want, because I'm thinking of multiple people that I could ask to also present.
Mm,
On the legal side or the investor side or things like that. It would be
Yeah.
hard to get them right
Yep.
now because this is like,
And they just want to come here and on
Yeah.
behalf of Ohio History Connection, State
Right.
Historic Preservation Office and do their thing. Do
Right.
oh, so just like a quick,
Correct.
them
Right.
in
I
and
don't want to
out.
say
I
quick,
see.
but they want to do their
They wanna do
presentation.
their own, yeah.
His title is Tax Credit Project Navigator.
What's his name?
Sam DeSillis,
At Heritage,
no, Ohio History Connection.
Ohio History Connection.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
I don't know.
I said
how
I would
felt.
ask. That's all I
Yeah.
can do. Okay.
It's
Plus they
quick.
Came up, just present it to us.
No, I-
We met.
That occurred to me, it's just if you
Mm.
benefit from it for
Just
future
have a
planning.
Yeah.
Official meeting.
Oh, oh,
Well, no, it's a question, not.
uh,
I don't know enough about it to know if we would.
I don't know if they would be open to that, of it being more of
Yeah, I
an
think-
education for the commission.
Yeah, I think he wanted it more for the
Okay.
For
community.
the community.
Because he even said that he wants a clear sense of people's concerns or questions,
Mhm.
which helps them inform future outreach.
February. or Another date.
Something that gives us a little more
Mm-hmm.
time.
Still have enough time between when you're looking at, say, doing it in May, 'cause then you could supplement whatever presented in
Right,
February,
right.
March.
Do you want to look at a January date?
Yeah,
Is
I
that
was just gonna
things
say,
are a little
we could
calmer
see.
after the first of the year?
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
I
he
would
could willing to
suggest
push
maybe
it.
like the later January, early February timeframe, I think makes sense. Like it would be nice, I mean, I know we're thinking about putting this together, but it would be nice if we had some sort of like a panel of professionals.
Mm,
And maybe it was like this organization, Heritage, I can ask a couple of my contacts and other folks. And we can moderate like the panel and, ask questions and do,
Yeah,
because I feel like that's a little more interactive than say, like somebody just presenting,
yeah. I think that's a great way to think about it because I think a lot of our community members are going to be coming at it from the
Right.
development side.
exactly.
So I was hoping to bring in some people,
Mhm.
some of the developers in our surrounding communities that have gone through this process and
Yeah,
where was it burdensome and where was it, those sorts of things that.
and then we have
lessons
control over the
learned.
questions and all of that. Yeah.
So I think having someone from the preservation office here to go over what the Secretary of Interior standards actually means is
Mhm.
to give that, it would just be one part of that workshop where we would provide many viewpoints. Yeah.
I agree. In February.
Yeah. Well, and this event that Sam and Nathan want to do would just be there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I feel like it might be a good introductory. What are the tax credits? How do you, what is SHPO's role in that? And then the May could be,
The panel,
The
that's a good idea,
panel.
Chris. Yeah, that's a good idea.
We'd also talked about a Tell Your BG history session for Historic Preservation Month. I think we were thinking about location and how that, is it open mic night style or how that might work? I can't remember if anyone was going to spearhead this specifically.
Well, I think I'd offered Juniper to do something, but then I think there was some discussion about that, possibly not wanting to have it there at the last meeting.
Yeah.
it wasn't that. one.
No, but
No,
just
I-
the
I
sense
just
of,
said Also, we could consider Claysell.
right,
Oh, right.
right, yeah. No, for sure. I just meant, yeah.
If that's still a session we'd like to put on during Preservation Month, I think finding a daytime so we can approach, Juniper or Claysell about what, what availability is there.
I feel like the library maybe too. Might be another one.
Yeah,
Venue.
another venue. I think, and I can't remember, we talked about this at some point, the parking lot was going to be tough to get in and out of, right? At the library. Or is that just an issue until
In May.
This whole
Probably
time
until at least July.
until July. Okay, so maybe it doesn't matter.
Right.
Does anyone want to kind of spearhead that session specifically, or do we want to just kind of go at it as a group? A group? Okay. And then the last item for our preservation month are the yard signs that Heather showed an example of at our last meeting. Something that, you know, those sort of temporary yard signs that we can stick in the yard, says. So I'd reached out to the National Trust. They were the ones who originally came up with the This Place Matters slogan years and years ago. And as Marissa informed us at our last meeting, they took that slogan off for Preservation Month to, you know, not detract from other what am I thinking of? Advocacy.
Political.
Right.
Mhm.
So I reached out to them to see if they were coming up with a new slogan for, you know, 2023 moving forward, and they're still looking into it. So we have the opportunity to create our own slogan of what we might want to do for, you know, Preservation Month, or wait and see if they come up with something that might be to, you know, unify a message. But, you know, there's like history lives here, or, you know, there's plenty of slogans that people tend to use, but then one of the reasons we need to get on top of this one is if we want the signs in the yard by May, we wouldn't want people to sign up by sometime in April. And Heather and I were thinking, hoping that if someone says, I want one of these on my property, we might say, okay, can you also give us a little history to go with it? And we can do a write-up of everyone who's participating. So again, it's one of those, we want to get that call out soon so people have time to prepare for that.
They put a QR code on the sign. Site.
Right. Right. Something that
Just
could
short-
direct
short
you.
one For description,
Yep, exactly.
without having to say, go to a website. But you can put a lot in this, a QR code. I wrote one at school and put it out in the hall just to see if students would use it.
Yeah.
I said, if you can read this sign, see the department secretary for $5.
Oh my gosh. And they-
And what happened was one of the faculty found out I did it, and she told the student, and he went out and barcoded it.
oh my
But
god.
the more you put into, you could put probably the Constitution.
Oh,
They
inside a
get
QR
smaller
code.
and smaller.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, you could look at having something that would be just a short description
Yep.
of that property.
Yeah, exactly.
So we were
We
thinking
did-
though, we would order signs in bulk, so
Yeah.
we'd have to get a price. We'd want them to be,
Mm.
you know, it'd be
You could maybe
easy if
get
they
some
were
kind of sticker or
singular.
Something with a QR code
Mhm.
printed
We
out
could
and stick
do-
it on the sign for that house.
A good idea.
We just thought
We
if it
could
went
do a
right to the web page dedicated to all the
Right.
history, then not
You could
only
maybe
does it
click
help
on the link.
us, but we also, I've talked to Hallie in the city and she said, no problem with any of this, doing the web page. Then we'd have the history of homes that we didn't have before. They
Right.
could be future buildings of the month. But not only that, we could have a little picture next to it. And then we could create a map, and we're sort of modeling after Bell Fountain, who
Mhm.
used it for their plaques. So you can do a walking tour of their plaques or the buildings. But this is kind of a mini version using residential, and it could be commercial too, though.
Right.
But it seemed like it would be nice to have on people's homes too, as you're walking down Worcester or, you know, anywhere.
Right.
So, and
So
we
the-
talked to the library too. We reached out to the library to think maybe
Okay.
they could be a site for picking up signs and
Yeah.
helping people research their properties, but we didn't hear back yet. So
Yeah.
that could be another partnership connection.
Yeah. If we did the signs in bulk, we could still include a QR code, but it would be the same on all
Right.
signs, and it would take you to the main page where it would say the history of everything in the map. Right?
Yeah.
And then we could, I don't know how
Have the
sturdy these signs
addresses-
are. They might be reusable for
Have
future
the
years.
addresses on that website. and
On the
you wanna go
website.
Look around for the other.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? Imagine you're walk by your neighbor and they have one, you look it up and then you're like,
And then
oh,
you
down
see
this
it.
street this
Right.
way, there's one. Oh, down, Yeah, exactly.
Just like Chris said, we need time for that,
Yeah.
for sure. Get that all together, with a
Mhm.
web page and
Right.
the histories. And, creating a map is not simple. It does take some time, so.
Yeah. So
So-
what do we need to provide to Ally to move forward with that?
Well, I think knowing that logo will be a key piece for sign design
Okay, our
and,
slogan, the logo.
we'd have to deal with some sign contractors, and see what those prices are, so.
Okay.
How do we determine a slogan then?
I know. I don't know.
Who's creative?
Who's a
Um,
wordsmith? Uh,
Good.
And
We can think about it for
Ye-
next meeting, give
yeah,
you some more
I was just gonna
homework
say
and,
that. more homework.
We could also
past is
post it
present.
on the website or do some sort of social media around it, like help us
poll?
pick the slogan for this initiative.
Can we do polls on city Facebook?
I don't
how
know,
Facebook
quite
works,
frankly,
but-
no one ever nominated a historic building. I'm not very confident
Yeah.
about
I
that. I
know.
mean, I just want to keep our work minimal, and if we're able to do that with just, our friends and you, I think it's, I'll draft up a timeline of events and,
Mhm.
so we stay on task with that and.
Great.
But like I said, it'll take some time.
Yeah.
plan.
I've done things like this before. I can come up with a few suggestions.
Yeah.
And then anybody else can.
How many
Great.
people, when we did the walkable, you had to like guess the buildings. Do you remember
Oh.
when we did that in May?
Yeah.
How many people did we have play that game? Not very many. Oh,
I don't know how many actually did it. We only
Okay.
received two filled out scavenger hunts.
Yeah.
got it. Okay.
First prize and second prize.
Yeah.
And he-
Okay.
and gave him third and fourth also, because there's nobody.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Oh,
That was the
maybe
first time,
more
though.
people did it and they just
Yeah, they could
didn't
have.
submit
time.
their,
That's a good-
yeah.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah. And we can just put it back out there again this year and see if there's more
Sure.
traction. Don't even have to change it.
It was
if-
really cute. though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You did it.
There's three.
There you go.
Just turn it in.
Right. right.
Oh,
Great. Well, I think our preservation month is gonna be full of fun activities. Did we have any other public relations items that we needed to talk about? Okay.
I just wanted to add that we officially became a member of Heritage Ohio as a
Oh,
city.
right.
So as I get information to share, I'll share that.
Great.
I assume there's a lot of education with that and other information. So just want to give you a heads up on that.
Neat. All right, well then, we will move to lobby visitation. We have anyone in our lobby? Yeah, stay. Yeah, if you can go to the mic just so people
Hear you on the street.
people on the YouTube can hear you.
I'm just hoping that as the signs are developed, that you folks, utilize the Friends knowledge. And right now, I'm not sure what our role really is. We sit here and you guys are, the legal part and the grants and all that. But some of us know the history and
Yep.
I'm not sure we're being utilized to that extent. And so as the signs are developed, I think it's something that I would be interested. I know Marnie Pratt at the library.
Mhm.
You've got Harold Brown and Mike Siverson of the Genealogy Society and others that have a great knowledge of Bowling Green history. And I think we'd like to contribute that if we can.
Yes.
So that would be the one thing. For example, where the Milliken is, talking about that block, before that, there was another hotel there called, it was the Oklahoma Corner. I'm not sure what the hotel was called, but it was kind of a tavern type thing. And there's
Yep.
pictures of it around. So, things like that. The block North Main, I think you mentioned that was a swamp. There was rattlesnakes in it. And there's a story of a student
Yeah.
getting bit by a rattlesnake.
Oh my
At that,
goodness.
when he's playing or at recess. So yeah, there's a lot of history and I hope we can be utilized for that. The other thing I just want to mention, you talked about walking Maple Street.
Mhm.
The street view of Google Earth is a tremendous thing. You can just sit in your home and walk down Maple Street
Yeah.
or any other street in town. And it gives you, you can see the houses. Now, obviously you don't know who lives there, but at least you can look at the architecture, the house and that type of thing. So
Yeah. Thank
That's all I have.
you.
I
Yeah.
think he really wants to tell us about Ross Hotel. That's my guess.
Something
Inside joke.
Something I had add, when I was thinking about things by street is that history and having addresses. And I don't know whether Heather could be the recipient, but whenever we find out something about a specific address, we need to get it into a database so we
Yeah.
can start looking at what, because I look at history sort of like layers. So the Milliken, there was other layers there, you know, but like having it as the specific address so we know what went on at that location. So that's why I thought like specific about address, because even going back through Van Tassel's book, because he's got a lot about like about neighbors, like who is next door, and like would be to try to establish like what was the address or as close as possible.
Mhm.
Right.
When the streets changed also.
Right.
I would be interested in knowing, just from the Friends group and those that are in town, what are the most compelling or interesting facts, stories, history elements of Bowling Green? You know, I remember one meeting, we were sitting in here and somebody came up, a friend to the podium and said, I'm not sure that anybody knew this, but Bowling Green was known as the Crystal City.
Mhm.
And I thought that was pretty interesting. I'm just interested, you know, I'm wondering if the Friends could compile a list of really compelling, interesting things just about Bowling Green.
Yeah.
Well, I think start big, right? Like just
Yeah.
compile what everybody, I think that maybe
Interesting
in
story.
preparation. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we just start with listing everything, you know, everything that you think is compelling or like would be interesting. And then maybe that is preparation for the Tell Your Story
Mhm.
BG session in May. Maybe that's the beginning of that.
Mhm.
I
By-
feel like there's sound
By
bites that we could
location, as much as
use.
you can
Yeah.
pinpoint like where, like what
Right.
specific address, but even like a block or
Yep.
like.
Some of those sound bites that are most interesting, maybe the more, you know, I'll call it sexier things, like, right, I feel like we can use those and engagement, right, for other events and things we want to do.
You know, that's the interesting part about this commission is all this history. I mean, we're into all the details of trying to
Mhm.
do these jobs, which I know take a lot of time and it's not interesting to
Mhm.
everyone. And I don't know if how we can minimize that and how we can maybe interest more people to share what you have to give, because I know there's a lot of people in our community that are historians or amateur historians. We want that information.
Mhm.
Mhm.
If we just had somebody here other than Heather, because she's got too many things to do, that could just sit and be at the computer and write this all up for us.
Well, I think that's what the Friends are here for, right? That's what the Friends are for.
Maybe we can grab somebody for that job.
Yeah.
And I think it's always interesting to hear your stories at the end of our
Mhm.
meetings. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But you do bring up a good point about the signs, because we are, you know, as the commission, if we're working with the student, we will have to come up with the content
Mhm.
and we will be hoping hoping we'll receive help from the
Mhm.
friends in that. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and these signs will be a lot about the history.
I think
which-
the storytelling is most important, to be quite
Yes,
honest. I
yeah.
feel like Bowling Green, as an alum of the university, but then also someone who moved back 3 years ago, I don't know very much about the
Mhm.
history of this town. And I feel like, the storytelling is so important. And I think that a lot of folks would want to have that and to know that.
Mhm.
Let's think about making a podcast.
Uh.
Uh, Want to do that, Christine?
No.
But
I am not
it'd be terrific
that
to,
would not be a
have a
role for me.
monthly podcast, somebody talking about their memories.
That
I
would
think
be
there's a
really
lot, we can come up with wonderful ideas. We just need time and,
Mhm.
Like, I
Uh,
think the thing too, quite a while ago when Chris mentioned, like trying to identify things by era. It
Mhm.
is time. As to what went on in a specific year, say, starting in 1833 and 34 and, because it's sort of like the city spread. I mean, when you do read that about the kids walking to school, and I think Thurston might have had the first school. And I mean, there's a lot in the book about where those schools were, to think that there was no streets, no pavement. They walked in trails past the swamps, that the one kid did get bit by this rattlesnake and survived. But again, it goes back to time.
Right.
As the white went on in 34 and then 35 and 36 and you got to do layers like archaeology, like got certain things during the war. I mean, when I found out that even that some of the pontoon bridges, I don't know whether they're all made here, but there was a factory here making the pontoon bridges, that we see in the movies and on TV. But that went on in, say, the 40, 43 and 40. So
Right.
if we look at layers by year, it's well. Yeah, that'd be good to have and then put it by locations. I mean, that's a sort of way to sort things as to where, where it happened. If we have an address, that's great, but if even just. That was it, yeah.
Mm.
I like the idea of the location piece. There's a book called For the Love of Cities. And there's a story in the book where a young boy had an idea to place little iron mice all over the city. And they were all in historical relevant places. And it was like a little scavenger hunt. Like you go to all the local businesses and you could pick up a pamphlet and, it would describe the hunt, and all these little, areas would be commemorated with the little mouse and a little plaque that said what the historical relevance of that space was. And that's why I was asking. And I like the idea of showcasing where those things happened in the town,
Mhm.
starting with, I think, the downtown, which is right where we want to put the CLG grant dollars, right?
The Genealogical Society newsletter is available at the library, isn't it? Because that seems like a treasure trove. Right. Okay. Mhm. Thank you.
I think this is something we can definitely build on with, the signage and tell your PG history. I'm sure we'll come up with all, maybe next year we'll have new projects that will incorporate this, but we do appreciate our friends and your
Mm.
willingness to
And send in
help us.
slogans.
It made
Yeah.
this more interesting for me, just listening to your stories
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
about the books and
Before we wrap up, did we have any other lobby visitation items?
Just don't try to get here on time, take the wife, get infection, take Gloria, Toledo.
Oh, oh,
Oh.
traffic. Um,
If you don't go to the microphone, we're not gonna hear it in YouTube land. Sorry, I hate being obnoxious about that.
Any of the members of the commission saw the email between Heather and I today. Yeah, okay. So, but I, you know, I don't know how long. That's not the only thing I wanted to say. So if you want to end by 5:30, I don't think that what I would like to contribute is going to happen in 3 minutes.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
We'd like to hear what you have to say.
All right. Let's see. I'm not going to talk about the proposed zoning code changes right at first because took some notes during the meeting. I want to say something about.
Sure.
Okay. Regarding the carvings on the courthouse, there are 2 dogs on the carvings and among the carvings. So that
2
might be a
dogs.
fun thing to mention.
Oh,
I have found 2 dogs. Maybe there are more. I've only found 2.
thank you.
So I think that's maybe one of the stone carvers' senses of humor, sense of humor. Regarding the survey that's going to be sent out to property owners within a proposed historic district, have you thought about what that letter or survey will say?
I can't remember if there's a standard. There, so what?
Nothing's been written. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay, well, I think it's probably important to anticipate concerns that property owners within a proposed district might have, and compose the letter or survey, compose the introductory letter to allay some of those concerns.
Mhm.
Specifically,
I was gonna pinpoint to Chris because you were working on an FAQ sheet. I was just thinking that would be a good thing
To
to
include.
put with it.
oh,
Mhm.
oh, an FAQ sheet.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I think that there's an idea that it has more to do, that it doesn't just have to do with the exterior, that it
Mm.
could possibly become interference on the interior. But also, for example, a question that my husband raised is when we need a new roof on our house, it's not done in historically correct shingles now. So when we need a new roof, will it be able to follow the current style of roofing, or will it need to be something that mimics historically correct?
I think
On
something
top-
like that, I think we'd be just looking at color and,
Yep.
you know, probably looking at something like gaudy's not being put up there, like really off.
Yeah, so we have, on top of the FAQs, we, as a commission, have talked about putting together a guidelines that walks through what the Secretary of Interior standards entails in a kind of if this, then that scenario. So hope, my goal would, I kind of started a draft of that and it sat on the back burner, but it would, because we would not expect the community to be familiar with the Secretary of Interior standards and having sort of a guideline of, if I have asphalt shingles, can I keep asphalt shingles? You know, if I have aluminum siding, those sorts of things that are going to be common questions. We hope to have a guideline that will kind of, placate some of those concerns.
Okay.
And it will help the commission too, when we get a certificate of appropriateness and we say, we can walk through our guidelines ourselves.
Yeah, great, because, you don't want, I think that the letter accompanying the survey, should be reassuring
Yes,
rather than terrifying.
I agree.
Okay, in talking to someone who has, a home that's that's in Boomtown, and federal, the federal designation,
Mhm.
he said, why is the city seeking designation since it's already designated? So I thought that was an interesting question because he doesn't quite understand that we want local designation. And so I explained that to him, but that maybe is something that people don't understand also.
Yeah, that is part of our growing conversation of educating the community on what it is, why it's important. Mhm.
Okay. Regarding the historic tax credit workshop, I think it would be super if somebody local who's actually used it,
Yep.
like the owners of the Jones Mansion, would come and talk.
Yes, yeah, that's definitely a goal.
And I'm in favor of using the Clazel because it's an historic building and some elements of it are still intact as an historic building. I'm also in favor of general information signs rather than specific ones, so general information about this area of downtown rather than the Milliken Hotel, for example. Okay, so regarding the PR district, and like I said, my cell phone died, so I don't have my notes, but I think my overarching concern is one, that it's not going to fix the problem of the deteriorating rental properties that some property management companies aren't taking care of and don't seem to be, the city doesn't seem to be to have an ordinance in place that requires rental property owners or management companies to maintain those. And I think that the proposed PR district is not going to do anything to improve our neighborhood, improve our older neighborhoods, without something like that accompanying it. And also because there are property management companies that currently do not take care of rental properties in the proposed pedestrian residential district. Why should they take care of things that they may build? If there's no teeth to property management companies taking care of their properties, if they build duplexes that look good now, will they look good 10 years or 15 years or 20 years from now when they aren't being taken care of? So right now, the city of Bowling Green has a certain style, and I appreciate that style. I moved to Bowling Green in 1967, and I like the big trees. I like the front yards. it's hard for me to feel comfortable with the proposed residential district lot sizes being reduced from currently 60-foot minimum frontage to 30-foot minimum frontage. The setback that would be allowed would be just 5 feet from the sidewalk. The distance between properties would be just 5 feet rather than, I think, 10 feet now. So I understand that there's some desirability for more density of housing, but why target the historic area that runs from Poe Road to Napoleon Road and several blocks on either side of Main Street for that? If the PR district is as good as it's being promoted to be, why isn't it being suggested for the entire city? As the Historic Preservation Commission, I think you may want to seriously weigh in on what may happen to these precious blocks that are old-fashioned Bowling Green. So I think that was probably the gist of my email.
Thank you.
Thank you. There any other lobby visitation or Rachel, did you want?
I did not know I was gonna have a 5-year-old with me today, guys. I hope that wasn't too wildly distracting.
It's
It
not
was
At all.
awful for me to be sitting in the back of there. I'm sorry. So one, Rose, thank you. And I would love to grab coffee and talk some more about your thoughts and concerns. I mean, we're still so council, just to walk back where we are in this process in case y'all don't already know. The administration and Heather worked really hard for, a year and a half plus on creating a really great zoning code draft that addresses a lot of issues that we knew existed in our community for a long time, that really took the goals of our planning documents and put them into action. Before we even started this zoning code update a year and a half ago, we went through the process of a zoning diagnostic, and we really looked at what our planning documents were calling for, and looked at how our zoning code was helping and hindering those efforts, and found that, in a lot of places, our current zoning code is a barrier to the kind of things that our planning documents are calling for and the vision we have for the future of Bowling Green. So it was absolutely necessary, and the ship had already sailed on updating our zoning code before I even joined council. And I'm so grateful that we tackled it whole cloth, because there's a lot of great stuff in there. So with that being said, there's still plenty of time to weigh in on the details of that document, the setbacks in the PR district, the use table, like all of it is still on the table. Planning Commission met at length during 4 or 5 meetings this summer and came up with a list of recommendations for council. And we are currently in the third of a couple working sessions, taking those recommendations one by one and talking about them. There'll be opportunity for individual council members to bring up issues, changes they'd like to see. The map is still in play. So once we get through these working sessions, we will create an adoption draft. And that is when the zoning code will officially be on council's agenda, which will trigger public hearing requirements, et cetera. So at the earliest, we will pass a new zoning code next year at some point. So there's still plenty of time to get involved, and I would really welcome the opportunity, as I'm sure other colleagues on council would, to talk about issues, concerns you all have. So that said, that's my, thank you, Rose.
Do you have a date for that 4th working session?
Yes. I don't have my phone, whatever the next council meeting is. So the
Okay.
first Monday. in-
December 5th
Yep,
would be the
we're
date.
still
Mhm.
working out a time, but we've
Okay.
been just either doing the working sessions before or after regular council sessions.
Okay.
You know, Rachel, thank you. We were just talking about the fact that in order for us to put through a historic district, we need to have a survey
Uh-huh.
of the community
Uh-huh.
and get a vote and then that will go to the council. But as far as I know, there hasn't been a survey of any sort that went out to the historic district or to the downtown owners asking if this zoning proposal is acceptable to them. I mean, we're the ones that live in that district, but somehow we've been left out of that mix.
Well, so this has been a long process. There have been there's been no mailing, of course, but there have been lots of opportunities for public involvement, and there still are plenty of opportunities for public involvement. And this is a 120-page document. So it has been something that has been given to the community in, pieces, given to council in pieces, given to planning commission in pieces. So John, I would love to sit down and get into it with you, but you're right. There's been no mailing in order. And when you update there was no legal requirement that there be
No, and I'm not-
mailing as there is
I'm
with
not saying
chapter
that-
158.
That there needs to be, but it's curious that that the residents are not being really involved, except if they want to show up at a hearing at council.
I'm sorry you feel that way. I mean, so when we do planning documents, like there's lots of stakeholder involvement, there's tons of public outreach, and this zoning code is really hoping to put those planning documents into action. So, but yeah, I hear you. There was certainly not a letter. I'm sure people are just now getting up to speed, but I'd also just like to stress that we're not out of time.
And I can stress that the people in the historic district are not very happy about it at this point.
I would love to hear more about why. I mean, I'd love to hear more about why. Let's get together. That's interesting. It's been illuminating to meet with folks. Okay.
Thank you.
Gosh, he's loud. He's really loud. He's loud everywhere.
It's great though.
Yeah,
Is the document available?
it is.
Mhm.
There's a great zoning code update page on our the city's website that has all the planning documents, the diagnostic, and then the June draft, which is what planning commission and council are working from.
Great. Thank
Okay,
you.
sure.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel.
Okay.
Yep.
My email is also on the city website.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Um, Thank you all. And do we have any other comments, or do we want to? Anyone want motion?